Paperwork is never ending.
Hi, yeah, thank you for calling me back. Yeah, he still got a fever. Did you finish your homework?
It is a constant influx, isn't it?
Okay guys, let's go.
There's always more papers creeping in. So if you feel like you're slowly being buried under piles of papers, then here are 10 easy tips for you to finally, once and for all, tackle that paper clutter and keep it from coming back.
The first tip I have for you is to digitize as much as you can. Obviously, this is not possible for every single type of paperwork you have in your home, but for a lot of them, you can actually reduce the amount of papers, like physical papers you have in your home. So a lot of things you can take pictures of or even scan them if you do have a scanner. You can create specific folders for each of your files. You can maybe have a system on your Google Drive, on your Apple iCloud. There's so many different ways you can do this. And it means when you have to go and find a certain paper, you can actually just type it in on your computer, you know, the name of the document, and you can easily find it. Whereas if it's a stack of papers or a mountain of papers around your home, it's going to be so much harder to find that paper you're looking for, and obviously it takes up a lot more space. So when you can, do try to digitize them. Number 2 is to stop receiving bills. And no, I'm not suggesting you stop paying your bills. Obviously that's a recipe for disaster. What I do mean is stop receiving the physical paper bills into your home. For us, we have actually decided to stop getting any sort of paper mail bills, and we simply receive the digital format on our email, sometimes on an app or on a website depending on the service. But for a lot of the bills you pay, you usually have set up one of those monthly debit, recurring type of payments that kind of happens automatically, and so you don't really need a physical reminder every single month coming through your mail, when you can simply check that online, pay it usually online as well, and it just reduces the amount of paperwork that comes into your home every single month. It's one of those really simple things you can do that can actually make a big difference down the line, because it's not those big actions we take that make a big difference. It's actually those little habits and little things we do throughout the week, throughout the month, that's stopping that big influx of papers coming into our home. Next is to create a filing or a folder system for your home. This doesn't need to be intricate or complicated. It can be a super simple filing system, so that when papers do come into your home, you know where they go, you know where you store them, and you also know where to go to find them. What we do is we have a folder that's kind of separated for each member of the family. So we know, my paperwork, my husband's, the kids, everything goes under their names, separated section in that folder. And then we also have, one for the house, one for the car, just things like that. Obviously, certain papers you do need to keep the physical copy of, but have a simple filing system like that, so you know where everything goes that you actually need to keep. One thing I find really helpful is to do less organizing, more decluttering. We often think we just need to have that perfect organizing system. If we can find just the right bins, just the right folders, that's going to help us have a clutter-free home, when in fact we usually don't really need to go out and buy more stuff. We just need to get rid of some stuff. And that's the same with paperwork. I find the only way we can stay on top of paperwork is to simply have less paperwork. So when it comes through the door, we try to tackle it, we try to declutter as much as we can. Things we don't really need to keep a physical copy of can go in the recycling. Obviously shred them or rip them with your hands if there's any sort of sensitive information on them, but just declutter as you go. There are things that have expired, things you simply don't have a use for anymore. Just get rid of those. It's going to make organizing so much easier when you have this stack of papers that you need to keep. You can simply organize those in a folder, whereas if you have this stack of paper, it's going to be so much more overwhelming to go through. And next up, create an inflow system. I've mentioned my inbox system before, but it's just so simple. Have something like a letterbox or a little tray somewhere next to the entrance, so that when you come into your home, you can put those papers there until you're ready to address them. And I do try to make it a point to actually address those papers, at least every week, if not more often, because usually it doesn't take that long. If it's this stack of papers in there, it doesn't accumulate, and keeping a pile of, unmade decisions or delayed decisions is just going to stress you out. Whenever you go past that hallway, seeing a stack of papers, it's not going to be a nice feeling. So have a place where so people can put those papers when they're coming through the door, and that's your little inbox, and you know, it kind of controls the inflow of things, so you know where they go for when you're ready to tackle them later on. And my next tip is probably the simplest I'm gonna give you today, and that's to just sort your junk mail straight away. Put it in the recycling. You don't need to keep all those flyers for the pizzeria that's just opened down the street, or you know, the dentist that's around you, or that roofing service they're advertising, because when you do need some sort of service like that that you need to use, what's the first thing you do? It's probably going on Google and searching, you know, dentists in my local area. It's not going to be going through that big pile of junk mail in your hallway to find the one you're looking for. So just do yourself a service, get rid of those, recycle them, and free up some of that mental load as well. Possibly one of the most asked questions I get is, what do you do with artwork? You know, children's artwork, we love them so much, but they bring so much of it, and honestly, if you kept every single piece of paper they scribbled on, you would probably get buried under papers. And I know it can feel hard, but getting rid of those papers doesn't mean you don't love your child. Creating a calm and tidy environment for them to live in is actually going to benefit them a lot more than keeping every single paper they've ever drawn on. We do keep some special ones, the ones we want to have in their little memory box. We have this little folder where we keep them in, and they do have a memory box in the loft where we keep some items like that. But for some of them, if we really like them but we're kind of ready to recycle them, sometimes we will simply take a picture of them on our phones, keep them in our Google Photos drive, and let go of the physical copy, because they produce so much artwork, which is so lovely to see, but equally it can really clutter up your spaces. So I think it's good to try to have a good balance here that works for your family. Now let's chat instruction manuals. I remember in the flat we used to live in London, we actually had this big box that was filled with instruction manuals for every single, you know, device and gadgets and appliance that was in that flat, and I don't think we looked through those once the entire time we were there. And whenever we did need something, the first thing we did was go on Google, find, you know, the digital instruction manual for that particular thing, and you can also search within that manual, you know, typing a keyword so that it's easier to find the information that you're looking for. So we realized a lot of these instruction manuals are actually not that useful. So if you do want to keep, we do have some of them that we have to keep for the house, but we keep them in one folder that's designated for all the house stuff that we need to keep. And the main things we keep are just kind of like the bigger items, your oven or the boiler, or you know, things like that. But for anything like my Hoover or the Nintendo Switch or a TV one or just anything like that, we don't really keep them anymore. Any sort of like Ikea flat pack manuals, we had so many of those, because if you look around my house, I think 90% of it is an Ikea showroom. We love Ikea, in case you didn't notice, but we don't keep those manuals either, because if we do ever need one, and we actually have needed for some of them when we moved them or we wanted to change something with that piece of furniture, we did need the manual, and we went on Ikea and we could find it straight away. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Now for magazines, if you keep them, you know, magazines or newspapers or any sort of paperwork like that that you may be keeping around your home, really ask yourself if you actually read those magazines, if you actually like having them, if there's something like, you know, a special edition or something that's meaningful to you, something that you like looking through. Obviously keep that, maybe displayed nicely somewhere, or have this little box or storage bin where you keep them for future reference. But if they are, you know, just magazines lying around all over your living room, all over your bedroom, or any sort of space like that, and you're not referencing back, maybe you flipped through it a few times but it's not anything special to you, maybe it's a good idea to let go of those and just create more space in your home. And also do the 15-minute sprints. I think you will be surprised to see how much you can accomplish by doing 15 minutes every day, or not even every day if you don't have the time for it, every other day, every week, whenever you have time for that. Just dedicate 15 minutes for it, because I know, especially for paperwork, if there is a pile in front of you, it can feel like you're never gonna get it done. I promise you will. And the hardest thing about it is getting started. As you start to go through it, you can actually get a bit into it, you get sometimes more motivated, maybe you can play some nice music, put a timer on your phone, do those 15 minutes, and then that's it, you're done for the day. and whenever you have the time again, just do that again. And in time, you will be surprised at how much progress you can make. This is one of the things I've had my students in my Simply Decluttered course say. They're always surprised at how much they can achieve in those 15-minute bursts. So yeah, don't underestimate the power of those tiny declutters. I do hope this was helpful, and I hope you feel more prepared in tackling your own paper clutter.